game for Cam, I also see a huge game for Jonathan Stewart. And on the other side, I see Drew Brees struggling, especially with this Carolina defense, the way that they've been playing the whole year. Nothing stands out for the Saints on my end. What do you see happening in this game?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think, you know, it doesn't matter whether it is Rob Ryan or Dennis Allen. You know, let's face it, the Houston last week, you know, they had 32 rushes for 150 yards and a touchdown against the Saints. So I really like this game for Jonathan Stewart. You know, he doesn't get a lot of passing game work, which we've talked about on the show. So from a PPR standpoint, you miss a little of that ceiling that you get when your running back catches passes. And he isn't used consistently at the goal line, but his volume of work has been great. So you get a great floor with his workload each week. And so, as I said, I like him very much this week against the Saints' run defense that was gashed by sort of the talentless or, you know, sort of mediocre running backs from, you know, that were the Texans. I also really like this as a game for Greg Olsen. You know, again, the Titans in Week 9 caught 12 passes for 153 and 3 touchdowns. The Titans tight end, so that's principally Delaney Walker. And then the Redskins were 4 for 43 and 2 touchdowns. That would have been Jordan Reed in Week 10. And last week, the Texans, who don't even really use a tight end much in their game plan, 6 for 92 and a touchdown. That was Ryan Griffin. So I really do like Greg Olsen this week. And on the Saints side of the ball, I am with you. You know, it's strange. The Saints are capable of every once in a while. They put up a game where you're kind of expecting them to play very poorly. I'm just not certain that that's going to happen. When the teams met in Week 3, they scored 22 points, but basically only Aaron Rodgers finished as a top 12 fantasy quarterback against the Panthers this season. So it doesn't bode well for Breeze. And, you know, in terms of the players, you know, Brandon Cooks has been a player that many of us, he kind of started the season slow but got better. But I'm not loving him this weekend because he's likely to be shattered by Josh Norman, who's really one of the better cornerbacks in the league. So if you're looking for kind of a play there, and Willie Snead is probably not going to play, so I kind of like Ben Watson to kind of benefit from, you know, if Cooks gets shut down by Norman, it's not a great matchup by the numbers, but, you know, somebody has to catch the ball there, so I could see perhaps Ben Watson stepping up and having a solid outing if you're looking for, again, a fill-in tight end because you lost your starter this week.
Very well said. Well, he's here, Allie. You asked for him. You got him. He's finally entered the lab. He sauntered in, pretty much did the so I'm late type of deal, but that's what can happen when you're part of an award-winning podcast. You can show up bashfully late whenever you want. Ladies and gentlemen, the Nutty Professor is finally with us. I give to you Dr. Andrew Glukov.
I have to be honest, Nick. I spilled beer all over my computer desk. It was a red alert. All over the place.
You spilled beer? Sacrilege, young
alert.
Sacrilege. Anyway.
I know. The worst part is, I just replaced my desk with an old one of my grandmother's that was sitting in my sister's place in Orlando. So I got beer all over my grandma's old desk. I was in complete freak out mode.
Oh boy. Anyway, since you just happened to join us now, obviously you know we're doing Allie's Fantasy Alley. I figure I'll pass this question to you before we let Allie go. Is there a game in particular or player in particular that you'd like to get some insight from Miss Fontana?
Oh, you're asking me that question.
Of course I am.
Well, looking at my fantasy roster, obviously in 2 of my 4 leagues, I have Rob Gronkowski. Ooh. One of the leagues, I was able to pick up Scott Chandler as a stopgap to hold over because he's kind of the hot backup placement. But if he's not available, I saw in one league Heath Miller was available and a couple of other low-end tight ends. I would, if you're looking at the lower third of tight ends, who would be a capable backup for Gronk in the couple of weeks that he's going to be out?
Well, you're really talking about matchups. I would say that if for some reason, and he may not, this player may not be there, but, Jacob Tamme has been, in games where Leonard Hankerson was not on the field, Jacob Tamme has been a favorite target of Matt Ryan, and now the hamstring injury that's really kept Hankerson off the field for most of the last 5 or 6 weeks finally resulted in him being IR'd this week. So I do like Tamme a lot this week, especially in PPR play, but even in standard scoring. In Week 8 against the Buccaneers, he caught 10 balls for 103 yards and a touchdown. And with Hankerson out, again, I kind of think that he's a little better than that lower tier because he's kind of been a factor, for many weeks this season. After doing nothing for the first 3 or 4 games, he started to catch on. The other player, again, Kyle Rudolph isn't a guy that many think of as kind of a lower tier guy, but let's face it, for most weeks this season, he wasn't doing anything much either. But there's sort of been a late season bromance between he and Bridgewater. It's kind of developed. And he has had 19 targets, 13 receptions, and 153 yards, plus a couple of scores over the past several weeks. And the one area where teams have game planned to go after the Seahawks has been with their tight ends. So you saw last week before Heath Miller was injured, and that may be why I'm not so high on Heath Miller this week, but he was targeted very heavily early on in that game last week by Ben Roethlisberger, but he unfortunately got injured. So while he would be a good play this week, I'm not sure that he's going to be a full go. But Rudolph against the Seahawks is somebody to consider. And then, if you're going kind of on the lower end, because I'm in some deep leagues where, I might have to start Vance McDonald this weekend, and he might be a guy that's available on your waiver wire. But for whatever that's worth, he's played well. Garrett Selleck, who is kind of the other tight end there, he's injured and likely to miss the game. And Blaine Gabbert has looked for McDonald consistently in the games that he started. So he's the kind of a guy that's sort of an interesting streaming tight end one. He's a low-end tight end one option, but nevertheless, because he's part of that offense now that they're running there in San Francisco, he's maybe a guy to look at as well.
So in short, I have 3 options with this particular team. Heath Miller, Zach Ertz, and Brett Selleck. Which one of those 3 would you take? Because I know Miller is a little beat up, but what about the other 2? You never know what you get out of that dumpster fire in Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's just so hard to get excited about, Zach Ertz. They aren't. It's not a great matchup, and I know that he was kind of playing a little better before he went out with his last concussion. But I just can't. I can't get that excited about Zach Ertz just because, it's hard to get excited about any Eagle player. Nick and I were talking about that. From a rankings, I'll tell you this is how I have them ranked. Heath Miller, Zach Ertz, and who did you say was the last option?
The other Eagles tight end, Brent Selleck.
Brent Selleck. He's a guy. It's very interesting. I mean, no, I would probably choose Ertz over Selleck, but it's not because I'm 100% confident, but I do have kind of Ertz is more of a higher end tight end too this week. So I'm sorry to say that I can't get more excited about Zach Ertz or. If Heath Miller was fully healthy, I think he's still questionable with a rib injury. I would say Miller, but then Ertz. So if you're going to have to choose between Ertz or Selleck, I would go Ertz.
Yeah, you're telling me this is an IDP league through NFL.com that has gone from obscurity in the 2-2 record and has won 6 straight. So I'm smelling playoffs. So I'm a little nervous because the postseason is right around the corner. But thank you again, Allie, for your knowledge, your expertise, because as we're talking, I'm making moves, I'm planning, and that's why we bring you on, because, Nick and I are not sports dumb by any stretch of the imagination, but we are not experts when it comes to the fantasy sports. So to have you on board and help us help.
One of those experts is a strong title. I do like to use analysts. I mean, we're looking at the numbers, we're looking at matchups, we're looking at who's playing well, who's developed chemistry with their, with the teammates, with the quarterback. So, but it's dire this week with not just Gronk being out, but Jimmy Graham and Tyler Eifert, which really hurts if you're an Eifert owner, because the last time he played the Cleveland Browns, he scored 3 touchdowns. So
yeah, I'm still feeling that one.
I'm going to be crying in my beer, without Tyler Eifert in quite a few leagues tomorrow. So you're kind of looking for who can be, Mr. Good Enough in his place. But anyway, hopefully he'll be healthy next week and ready to go.
Allie, I'd be crying if my beer and half of it didn't land on my desk. But I salvaged the other half. That's why God invited a
straw or a tongue, right? No beer should go to waste.
Oh, man, there was a lot of paper towels involved. There was tears of anguish and angst and teenagerism. But I digress. Allie, thank you so much for joining us this weekend. And hopefully all those owners, including myself, salvage viable wins en route to the postseason, because Gronk will be back. Graham won't, but I don't care about him. And those other guys, they're not on my team. I don't care about them either. But I care about Gronkowski. He needs to come back. But for all of them, good luck this weekend. So thank you again, Allie. Why don't you let everyone know where they can find you online?
Of course, you can find me on Twitter at Allie Fontana. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. And I'm also contributing this season to the Fantasy Fix and Fighting Chance Fantasy.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Fontana, and you have yourself a great Sunday.
You too. Good night, guys, and have a great weekend, or what's left of it, and good luck in Week 13, everyone. Talk to you next week.
Thank you. Good night. That was Allie Fontana, the one, the myth, the legend, and one of our fantasy football experts we love having come on every week to deliver the news, the numbers, the analytics. Nick, just speaking from experience from playing fantasy sports for many years, it's tough to analyze the numbers as much in depth as Allie does. I mean, I'm good with numbers, but that's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. I've been doing fantasy, but you'd be surprised. I've been doing fantasy football since I'm 15 years old. So
aren't you like
you're talking
60 now?
Quiet. I'm not the one that spilled beer all over my grandmother's desk, so hush. Anyway.
I cleaned it.
Anyway, it's pretty cool. No, I've been doing it for over 25 years. And every year it seems to get harder and harder and harder, because back then it was like you go by the player name, you see the stuff, you see the stuff in the newspapers, and you go like that. Now you have to go through algorithms, matchups, this, that. It's not easy. And that's why you bring a person like Allie Fontana onto the show that can help, that has many years experience herself, but, thinks everything through, goes through all her routine. And that's the reason why she's very successful at what she does. So it's going to be, honestly, very, very, very fun to see what happens after Week 13.